So the other day, I watched a 2004 indie film Primer, which, if you've never heard of it or never seen it, which I totally understand, is about two engineers that pretty much accidentally discover time travel. And more importantly, it's considered probably one of the most complicated movies ever created, or at least that's what Reddit says, where I got this recommendation in the first place. And after watching it, it got me thinking about this idea of complicated movies, complex movies that, by the end you're thinking like, what happened? And I think the best way to fully portray my feelings towards Primer as a movie and seeing the whole picture about it, I want to kind of go through a journey of splitting complicated movies into three different categories. Now, this is somewhat limited from my Letterboxd experience these past couple of years. I don't really count movies before Letterboxd just because, I have a terrible memory. But to start off, in category one, I would put movies like Tenet, or in other words, Christopher Nolan, who makes kind of these fun, complicated movies like Tenet, Inception, The Prestige. I haven't seen it, but Memento, I think, is also complicated. But I'm just focusing on Tenet, and I know it is somewhat like controversial. Like it doesn't have the best reviews. But I found it really fun. Overall, I think these kind of movies, Christopher Nolan think pieces, are fun. They're well crafted, both cinematography, maybe audio mixing could be fixed a little. And I feel like even if you don't fully understand it while you're watching it, it's not really the whole point. If you're having a fun time while watching through it, you are trying to think, you are trying to piece things together, but you're engaged the whole time. Now, I do realize Tenet and Inception both had huge budgets. I mean, Tenet had over $200 million budget, so it makes it easier to make it a popcorn flick if it has all this money behind it. But still, I think overall these complicated movies that fall into this category are the most rewatchable. By the end, you do want to rewatch it multiple times to get a better picture of everything that happened, or just research after. But I think that's less of a criteria of this kind of movie, because I think every complicated movie, no matter if it's good or if it's bad, or no matter if it's good or if it's bad, you kind of want to do some research to understand what you just watched. But these are the most rewatchable, I feel. And Tenet was truly the reason I even discovered Primer, because after watching it, I love talking about complicated movies with people afterwards, as a group, try to figure out what just happened. And so I was looking up most complicated movies, and on Reddit, Primer came up, and I think that's when I added it. It's kind of a guess, but I think that's when I added it to my watch list. The second category, I would put a movie like Under the Silver Lake Under. Now, this might be a little bit controversial because I know people do enjoy this movie, but I will start with, I think cinematography was great, had some great shots. I love Andrew Garfield, and while watching, I was invested. I mean, I could see the puzzle pieces, the mystery behind it, and was curious where it was going to go. And after the fact, I can see, people are happy with it. They love putting these puzzle pieces together. But for me, I just didn't care. By the end, I did not care about what just happened or the little puzzle pieces and putting them together. I think my Letterboxd review paints my mindset perfectly. It says, at first I thought I didn't understand this film, but now after looking into it more, I realized something much worse. I did understand it, and I just don't care about anything that happened. At least I had Andrew Garfield and some pretty neat cinematography. And that's kind of my viewpoint for these categories of complicated movies. Like, they're well crafted. I guess David Lynch might fall into this. Like, it's so weird and complicated. Like, you can see the vision behind it. You can see the artistry, but you might not super care by the end what just happened, and you might not give it a 5 out of 5 just because it's super quirky and complicated. Now, for category 3, it's pretty much completely new. It's brand new. Primer is the trailblazer, the president, the CEO of this category. Now, I find Primer by the end to be the opposite of Tenet. I think the audio is pretty rough. I was on max volume, and it was kind of hard to understand fully what people were saying. Acting, not the best. I mean, the director was one of the main characters. I guess the color grading was kind of cool, unique. I guess a little bit ugly, but I mean, I could, if I were to give it 1 pro, it'd probably be that. But I think that's it. I think it's really being carried by just the complexity of it and nothing else. I was so confused by the end because I couldn't fully remember why I even added it to my watch list. And now after understanding about the Reddit side of it, I just don't fully understand. With all that said, I do understand that it was a super low budget, like $7,000. I mean, that's why the director was one of the actors. And I think most of it was shot on film, one take. It was an accomplishment for indie films. I acknowledge that. And most of you can just say, "Oh, you're just mad." I'm stupid, and maybe I am, because again, I didn't really understand it at all at the time. And I am happy for you if you did watch this and you loved it and you wanted to make. I saw literal novels of people trying to explain this film, and I'm happy for you if you connected with so much. But for me, it did not, and I think it brings up this kind of concluding thought of, I love when filmmakers push the envelope, try new things, and I have no ill will towards this film, and I acknowledge its accomplishments for what it did. But I think a film like Primer can't just be confusing for the sake of being confusing. And it's kind of like with A24 films to a degree. It's like they're very quirky, very weird just for the sake of it, I feel. Like, just this, like, oh, I'm unique, a pick-me film, I guess you could say. And I just don't want modern new filmmakers to come in thinking like, oh, I gotta be weird, I gotta be complex. I think just trying to create the most cohesive screenplay that you can possibly create for everyone to enjoy and understand. Well, again, you don't even fully have to understand it, but I think there's other aspects to it that you have to utilize to make a good film other than just, oh, they'll figure it out after. Yeah, I guess I'm somewhat rambling, but I think that's my main takeaway, is just can't be complicated for the sake of being complicated. Like, I think this movie would have been a good book, and maybe it is a book, but I think it would have been much better as a book than a screenplay as a movie, because the editing was just so bad. It wasn't even complicated. I guess I need to bring this up. It wasn't, after I watched the video and did some research, not because I liked it and I would never rewatch this, just out of probably spite for this movie. Now I'm getting angry. Out of spite, I watched the video to fully understand this, and it wasn't even that complicated. There are like off-screen stuff, and, you know, respect it and all that, but the way that it's edited is the reason it's complicated. That's why you can't follow anything, because the person that made it didn't want you to understand. And I don't think you're stupid for not understanding. Again, I'm not coping, but yeah, I don't know, just rambling. Fun fact: the phrase time travel was actually never uttered in this film, even though it's probably the most complicated time travel movie of all time. And instead, it was always just referred to the box, which is their time travel device. Yeah,